Thank you for auditing the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who once again will be reviewing Weezer with their new album, Van Weezer. Now obviously the most evident thing about this album is the weird tone just set by its title, Van Weezer, very clearly a reference to Van Halen. The cover features a lot of lightning, very much a callback to Ride the Lightning by Metallica. And it's weird because the question that it makes me think of is a question that I have asked ever since I started paying attention to Weezer. Will the real Rivers Cuomo please stand up? Who is Rivers Cuomo? What kind of artist is he? What does he actually believe? What is his artistic output? He is so capable. You know, there's this sort of, a lot of artists have kind of like origin stories, like superheroes. And I think there's a lot of different origin stories for Rivers Cuomo, but the one that I think is the most interesting is that he just decided at a certain point he wanted to learn how to write pop songs and make pop songs, and so he did. This ability, this, frankly, genius to copy other people's styles, to create a hit in a certain style, was paired with still being able to make very personal, very well-written, meaningful songs that represent his actual life. In this album, we see a complete mixture of both. It is never quite clear, when is he satire, when is he imitating, when is he parodying, when is this in the style of? Is he just grabbing a mixtape that he made in 1992 and hitting fast forward and then just copying a song? Okay, now I'm going to do a Cars song. Now I'm going to do a Metallica song. Now I'm going to do an Ozzy Osbourne song. Now Van Halen. Like, can we even call this a real artistic position? Does Rivers Cuomo exist? I should say before I go further, my knowledge of Weezer is very, very odd, okay? This right here is my genuine copy of the 1994 album Weezer by Weezer. I loved this album when it came out. So did my guitar player and good friend, Ben. And when we were playing Mortal Kombat 3, it might have been Mortal Kombat 2, on the Super Nintendo non-stop in my house in Belmont, Massachusetts, Ben would put this goddamn CD on every single time, and he put it on repeat. And then our percussionist, Mark, also would put it on every single time, till I got so burned out on this perfect album that I basically decided I never wanted to hear Weezer again. Ben actually watches this channel from time to time. If you're here, Ben, why don't you comment? So I kind of went on strike up until I started this channel. And when I realized, well, I guess I should pay attention. You can't live in the world and not know a few Weezer songs. My in-laws at the time were really into Weezer, and I was aware of them, but I gave up. I got burned out. And so it was only with the Teal album that I came back. That was the first album I reviewed by them, and then the Black album, and then, of course, OK Human, which you see behind me. I think that's one of my best reviews. I love that album, and I've learned to appreciate it. And those three albums, these four albums, including Van Weezer, I think gives me, perhaps, a better insight into Rivers Cuomo than if I had actually listened to their entire catalog. Okay? If I'd been there for the White Album and, Pinkerton, all that stuff, maybe I'd get something else. But right now, what I'm getting is exactly who Rivers Cuomo is right now. Part of the idea behind this channel is having a sort of intellectual flexibility, okay? The ability not to be rigid in your beliefs in what music is. When you're 20s, being able to grow with music, be flexible. It is one of my theories that flexibility is the only way to maintain any form of youth. So to love Weezer's output since 2018 is, I think, to get a lot of what I hear people talk about Weezer in a microcosm. And when I come back to this question, does Rivers Cuomo exist? Is he the guy making Africa as a joke on Teal? Is he the guy releasing OK Human with amazingly heartbreaking songs of routine and COVID and personal growth? What is he? The answer is yes. It's all him. It's all Weezer. And nobody can do what they do. Rivers Cuomo is doing this thing where he's making a Cars song, but it's always a Weezer song. He's making a Van Halen song, but it's always a Weezer song. Whatever it is that he's doing has not been done before. I'm not sure it can be done again. And it is almost designed to frustrate music critics and people who take the theory of the auteur quite seriously and people who take these things very seriously. There's a playfulness to this, an obnoxiousness to this as well. Like he's sort of flexing. This whole album is kind of a flex, like just check out what I can do. And I think what's interesting is that when I think about my favorite artists, okay, and this goes for art, this goes for literature, this goes for music, any film, my favorite artists are the artists who are not afraid to piss off their fake fans. They can take a true fan and shake them off till the fan goes, oh, I liked what they did before. You're not a real fan. But I want to go further. I don't want to just call Weezer fans who dropped off fake fans. It's worse than being fake. It's being rigid. It's having a concept of what an artist is. Bob Dylan makes acoustic songs. That's what Bob Dylan does. Bob Dylan does not plug in. Goodbye, rigid fans. Neil Young makes country songs and rock songs. He does not make tracks with Devo. Goodbye, rigid fans. Kanye makes Kanye music, not whatever the hell this is. Goodbye, rigid fans. These people, they break. They actually get old. The artists that they love in their youth make them old because they don't follow with them. Whatever Rivers Cuomo is doing this crazy year, where he released these 2 albums, he is doing it in such a way that he is showing a flexibility in his creativity and demanding flexibility from us as the listeners. Can we take the real, earnest attempt at an absolute masterpiece and an album called Van Weezer? The second most controversial album this week that came out with the first word of Van. The other, of course, being Van Morrison. When you think about this year and what he's doing, it's pretty amazing. I think what makes it so interesting is that he released this album. He released OK Human and Van Weezer. And he's competing against himself. I listen to a lot of music. I listen to a lot of good music. Both of these albums are definitely in the running for Album of the Year. He's doing a thing that actors sometimes do, where they sort of like compete against themselves in the Oscars. I thought of the best example was 1992. Al Pacino was nominated Best Supporting Actor for Glengarry Glen Ross and Best Actor for Scent of a Woman. He, of course, famously won for Scent of a Woman, which was his worst performance of his career up until that point. After that, he just realized, they want me to yell? As opposed to the subtle performance that he gave in Glengarry Glen Ross. I think that Oscar basically destroyed Al Pacino. That's neither here nor there. But this kind of idea, like, is it possible that both of these albums are as good as Glengarry Glen Ross, as that performance? Is he competing against himself? I don't know. We'll have to see. The thing that I like is that not only is he giving in to his playful side on Van Weezer, and I keep saying he, I know Weezer's a band. Okay, I know Weezer's a band, but like, they are a band, and I get that's important, and the drumming's amazing, and the guitar work is amazing, and the bass, they are a great band, right? All 4 of these guys, if they were not with Rivers Cuomo, but it very much feels like they're doing what Rivers Cuomo feels like doing. Not only are they showing this playful side versus the more serious side, but they're also showing an intimate side to the bombastic. And this appears to be an album for the arenas. Just absolute, just hard rock anthems from the 80s, from the 90s, from the 70s, for the 2020s. It must be hard. And I'm saying this, and it sounds like I'm being facetious. I'm not. If you are a fan who loves them because of Pinkerton, I get it. It must be hard. I miss the old Kanye, right? I understand that. But wow, it is amazing that they can do it. I'm going to give you your homework, which is a sample track. I don't think it's one of the singles on the album, but I think it's the best example of the album. It's my favorite track on the album. I'll put a link to it up here. It's called The End of the Game. There's a couple things about this song which I think are particularly interesting. this is the most clearly, like, it is such a conscious aping of Van Halen. It's almost like offensive, right? Starts off with these tap licks, and then the verse, the way that it sounds just like a 1984 era Van Halen song. But as I say, it's always Weezer. The chorus sounds completely like Weezer, even with these tap licks. And I'm just gonna say it, Van Halen kind of sucks. I mean, I like their first album, and 1984 is okay, but everything Van Halen, like, I like Van Halen, but they're not, I don't think they're as great as a lot of people say. I like this more than I like most Van Halen, because it gets that feeling that you get from Van Halen, that happy, upbeat, pop, hard rock feeling, but in just a way I can relate to more. I mean, it goes so far down this road to imitating that they even do the little harmonics game, the from Panama, like right before the break, Panama, and they do it here. But it's the content of the song. So, I mean, okay, the form obviously is all about just imitating Van Halen while having super catchy Weezer pop licks, right? And then all the tap licks and this crazy ending. All I ever wanted was to be wanted by you, and just all these stuff and clapping and even some Metallica guitars at the end. What I think is interesting is the actual theme of this song. I'm going to put forth an idea that Rivers Cuomo deserves a little more credit for not being an egomaniacal maniac. Okay? Egomaniacal maniac. Did I say mananiac? He's not a mananiac. Because part of this album is not just a love letter to his influences. It's a love letter to his producers. So as we'll talk later, he has a whole song that features Rick Ocasek, who produced Weezer's first album. More on that in a second. And then this song is to someone named Susie. And this whole album is produced by Susie Shin, part of the, I guess, Jake Sinclair production tree. I don't know what. She produced a lot of the stuff off of Panic at the Disco's last two albums, which are two of the best albums of the last 10 years. Feel free to at me. But my daughter has definitely helped me to see how good Panic at the Disco is. And part of the reason Panic at the Disco is so good is because of Jake Sinclair and because of Susie Shin. So this whole song is like this love song. But I don't think it's a love song, a romantic love song. It's a music love song to his producer, to Susie, mentioned right at the beginning. And about being wanted to be with her. And like comparing them to like Mick and Marianne Faithfull and like wanting the same melodies. So there's this whole other thing that goes on where at the same time that he's just doing this throwback to, oh boy, I sure loved driving around in the 80s listening to Aerosmith, right? 90s probably. Late 80s, early 90s. There's also this other part where it's a lot about music. It's about the music making process. It's about how important it is for him to make music, how important it is for him to make hits, and how in this song, it's a love song to his producer. That's cool, right? All right, let's get on to the rest of the album. So the album begins with the worst song on the album, Hero. It's just trying to be a kind of fun and dumb pop punk song. Goat heard this. She was very proud of herself, and she should be. She goes, "This sounds like Kids Bop Green Day." Oh! You know, that gif of the guys running around like that. If I edited the show, I'd put that gif in, but I don't edit, which is why I can do 3 shows a week and have a full-time job and be redoing lots of stuff around the house. Just like, Kids Bop Green Day. I think if you wanted to destroy the whole album, you could just say, what is this, Kids Bop Green Day? It's good, though. It's a good song. It's the worst track on the album, I think, but it's good. It's all about how he doesn't want to be a hero. Great guitar licks all the way through. Has some of my favorite lyrics, like the idea of it's hard enough to have one identity. And then this is the line I like the most. "If silence was the voice of a generation, then I could be who you want me to be." So it's an interesting thing because Rivers Cuomo isn't really the voice of his generation, but he probably could have been. You know, he meant so... At this point, you know, when Buddy Holly came out... Oh, I just blew off my notes. You know, when Buddy Holly came out, so many people heard it, and they were just like, yes, this is the guy. This is us. This is who we are. But he very much didn't go that way. And there's a beautiful little guitar line. Just listen. The little tiny high guitar line in the back as he says, "Who you want me to be." Just great. The next track is called All the Good Ones, which has a straight up "We Will Rock You" rhythm. on purpose. More fun, kind of pop punk vocals, a very great catchy chorus. The thing about Weezer, and I'm just learning this right now, I could listen to OK Human and Van Weezer on repeat all the time. I don't think wait a minute, is this how I got sick of this? I feel like I could listen to them on repeat and never get sick of it. You know, I've been listening to this album basically nonstop for 24 hours, and like, the songs are just so catchy and so good, but I have to be careful. I might blue myself. Just like Ben blued me. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to give myself space. I'm not going to get tired of Weezer. But I understand the instinct because the songs are so catchy and so good and so well produced, right? I understand why people can hate. But why hate? Celebrate, as I like to say. There's a really good point on here from someone on Lyric Genius. You know, that's basically the only place I do research for this channel because I like to read lyrics. Someone named Refortitude284, I suppose that's supposed to be read Ratitude 284, said, "Rocking out in the car is an ongoing theme of the album." And he points out in the next song, I need some of that, or a couple of songs later, "Even when the sun was fading, I was in my hatchback raging." And this is, I think, an important part about this album and about the feeling that he's able to do. He's able to instill. This throwback album, even though he's doing something interesting artistically, it is a throwback album trying to get back to the feeling that he had driving around in his car listening to music. That was the most important part of my adolescence, okay? I didn't have a girlfriend. I didn't pay attention in school. All that mattered to me was driving around in my van with my friends, rocking out to music. That was it. I even had a dance. I had a whole dance. It went like that. I'd do that while driving. I'd have my knees on the wheel. I'd get the song going. I'd do that dance while driving. Everybody loved it, you know? And this song is trying to get that feeling. Other songs are trying to get that feeling. And I think that's kind of a special moment. We could maybe put it on a little rock and roll continuum with Roadrunner by the Modern Lovers. Could we put together a mix of songs about sitting in cars, listening and jamming out? You'd have to put Bohemian Rhapsody on there because it was immortalized by Wayne's World. Put in the comments other great songs about or that elicit the feeling of driving around in a car with a bunch of smelly friends listening to music. The next track is The End of the Game, which I've already discussed, the great Van Halen cover, virtual cover. Then comes the song, I Need Some of That. I would like to put this song and pair it together with My Old Piano, I think it's what it's called, off of OK Human, where it's a song about the healing power of playing music at his home. What I like about this is again another song about the power of making music and the importance of music in your life. But as opposed to being a COVID-centric, alone with a piano, sitting in a room, it's thinking about when he was younger, listening to Aerosmith. And I just have to say this. If you are under the age of like 38, you don't understand that Aerosmith used to be the best band in the world. They were so good. They were so awesome. Just when Desmond Child got his grimy hit-making fingers into them and made them make all those ballads, ever since Get a Grip, they've just been a bad band. But for a long time, they were so great. And it's just great having this connection here. And then I realized when I was listening to this song, I was like, no, but this song isn't about Aerosmith. This song is about the Cars. That's what I thought when I listened to it. Before I read that Rick Ocasek is at the end of this song, there's a little clip of him speaking. The whole song sounds like My Best Friend's Girl. He talks about things being just what he needs, which is just what I needed. And it made me realize something. These two albums are a dyad. Let me explain, okay? Obviously, the person behind this produced that, so they're connected in that way. But are there any other two albums which are chock full of hits, like hit after hit after hit, debut albums where all the filler songs are as good as the hits? I put forth to you, the Cars and Weezer Blue album should always be together. And this song emphasizes that. And it's nice hearing Rick Ocasek, who sadly passed. I do think there's a real artistic connection between Ocasek and Rivers Cuomo, both understanding how to use pop to make great music and not really care what the music snobs might be saying. There's something too about even if we blow up, we're never going to grow up. Another tangential old man sky thought here. If you are of a certain age, you grew up watching commercials for a toy store called Toys R Us. I don't want to grow up. I'm a Toys R Us kid. Toys and games and video games, the greatest toy store there is. I don't want to grow up because if I did, I wouldn't be a Toys R Us kid. This song is so ingrained in the minds of people my age. I think that might be part of the reason we have trouble growing up. Why we like comic book movies and collecting toys and listening to songs that remind us of the 80s. It could just be that there's this really strong connection in our mind between like a sort of future nostalgia that was built into us by watching these Toys R Us commercials. Because when you were a kid, Toys R Us was one of the only places you could go to get the things that you wanted, right? Like you didn't go to a lot of other stores to get those toys. Anyways, I don't know. I don't think there's necessarily a connection between Rivers Cuomo and Toys R Us, but there is between that kind of nostalgia and the desire to not grow up. Then we get to the track Beginning of the End. An amazing thing happened with this song. Now, I know I come across as kind of arrogant. I'm a little bit insecure, but I'm pretty confident in a lot of things. But here I was really proud of myself because I was listening to this song, okay? It's cool. It starts off with kind of a cool dynamic of an acoustic guitar and a voice, and it gets a little bit underproduced and then overproduced. But at a certain point, it gets really epic. And I thought these words to myself: this sounds exactly like God Gave Rock and Roll to Us by Kiss, off of the Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey soundtrack. I thought that, and I thought, well, I know that they love Kiss. I know Weezer's big thing is Kiss. But Kiss fans don't like God Gave Rock and Roll to Us. Like only people who love Bill and Ted's. I remember being disappointed in that song. The whole conceit of the movie is they went away in a time machine and like studied for years to write the world's greatest song, the song that would literally change the course of human history. And they came back with this weak sauce, no makeup, fake Kiss song. And it turns out, and I didn't know this. I did not know this when I made this observation. This song was written for the third Bill and Ted's movie. So this is 100% honoring Kiss and honoring Bill and Ted's and honoring that second song. True story. I've been talking a lot about people my age in the early 40s. I am in the dead zone for Kiss. God Gave Rock and Roll to Us was the only Kiss song I had ever heard when I heard it. Kiss was not on classic rock. Kiss was not on oldies. Kiss was not on pop. Late 80s through the 90s, up until their resurgence in the 90s with I Wanna Rock and Roll All Night or whatever, I had no knowledge of Kiss at all, except for that one song. Just kind of a funny thing, because people sort of assume, oh, everybody knows Kiss. No idea. Never, they had faded out, and they have no niche. Like nobody wants to listen to Kiss unless they remember listening to Kiss. And I was happy hearing this song with the crazy tap licks and the callback to God Gave Rock and Roll to Us, because over the years I've actually come to like God Gave Rock and Roll to Us, and especially the pomposity, just the. I doubted myself. I kept my notes the way they originally were before I saw that, and you see, I wrote Queen in here, Queen-like, because I wasn't ready to commit to this whole jag on Kiss. I just wasn't quite sure if I could really say this thing about Kiss, but it turns out I can. You thought that song was an imitation. You thought that was a hot, hard rock take. I've had a lot of hot, hard rock takes here, right? I've said that I don't care about Kiss. I said I don't like Van Halen. Wait till you hear what I have to say about the most famous Ozzy Osbourne song. So Blue Dream is a bizarre song. He took, almost note for note, and redid the song Crazy Train, written by Ozzy Osbourne and Randy Rhoads, right? I almost said Dusty Rhodes and Old Country Roads. And before I get into it, I just want to make a hot take on the song Crazy Train. I, much like I had no exposure to Kiss, had no exposure to Ozzy Osbourne or Black Sabbath either. They were also in a weird dead zone in the 90s, where up until the resurgence of Sabbath and the resurgence of Ozzy, you never heard them. One exception, hockey games. I used to go to a lot of games of the Boston Bruins back in the mid-90s, and that was the first time I ever heard Crazy Train. And so, like, the song is so badass. And then the verse is so weak. Are we allowed to call that out? Are we allowed to call out the fact that that song starts off as the most badass song ever made and then becomes like this weak chorused guitar? It's such a disappointing song. I think Crazy Train is one of the most disappointing songs for the intro to the rest of the song. But what does Weezer do with it? Weezer basically samples it and makes it a really cool song. Like, I really like it because this works. Because Weezer does this throughout the entire album of having kind of like super gnarly heavy metal stuff and then breaking into kind of lighter, softer, poppy, pop rock, pop punk sounds. So it works perfectly. Thematically, I think, speaking of like making these mixes, it seems to be a song all about like trying to get over a breakup while swimming in the ocean. So I think we can now also create a little playlist of songs about swimming around in the ocean and talking to fish. We're talking Where's My Mind by the Pixies, Weird Fishes by Radiohead, and now Blue Dream by Weezer. I think they kind of all go together. And this similar theme, you know, rock stars sing so much about drugs and being in outer space and all that, but the underwater theme is not quite there. We might want to throw Octopus's Garden in there as well. He does talk about an octopus giving him an 8-hand salute. Rivers Cuomo, are you joking? Is this a joke? Are you like sampling Ozzy Osbourne and making a joke about octopus giving you an 8-hand salute? Does Rivers Cuomo exist? I don't know. Hey, true fact. Do you know what the plural of octopus is? I'll give you a second to think about it. It's octopuses. You thought it was octopi. Octopus is Latin, not Greek. Therefore, the plural is octopuses. And when I was 3, my favorite movie was Octopussy. True story. The next song is called One More Hit. I don't know what it is. Whenever I review Weezer, I just feel really relaxed. I feel like some of my best videos. I just feel the most like charismatic. Well, I guess if you're being charismatic, you don't point out being charismatic. Okay, next song, One More Hit. Basically a cover of Enter Sandman. I think they could have given Metallica credit for it. It feels like a rejiggering, but then again, you get to the chorus and it's just such a Weezer song. Everything gets super Weezer-y. The whole song seems to be about like drugs and wanting to do drugs. I read somewhere he said it's about a prostitute who's hooked on heroin. I don't really know. I think it's actually more about him being addicted to getting hits, like hit songs. I think that's the joke. I'm not sure. But then there's like this cutaway part where it just gets super hard metal. And you just have to give the band credit. It's not easy to do a thrash metal bridge, okay? Like, you couldn't ask Radiohead, as an example, as a very talented band. You couldn't say, make it sound a little bit like Slayer. Like, make it sound like they couldn't do it. And they do it really well here. Next track is called Sheila Can Do It. This seems almost like it's an imitation of Weezer. Maybe the Ramones. I don't quite know. Lyrically, it's kind of weird. If Sheila can do it, so can I. I don't know if that's like Sheena's a punk rocker. I don't know if that's a reference to Sheila Take a Bow. Maybe some kind of trans things happening here where saying if she can shave her legs, then I can. Maybe in the song Sheila Take a Bow is a song about, boys being girls and girls being boys. I can't quite tell. I don't think so. I don't think that's what the song's about. I think it's just kind of a goofy song with a great, great guitar solo. A little bit more of the dynamics on this. In general, on the album, there's not too much play with dynamics, but this song, there's nice kind of like cutting out with just one voice. Then we get to the next track, She Needs Me, which I'm bringing to you courtesy of Wegmans Creamy Peanut Butter. This peanut butter is made with molasses and hydrogenated vegetable oil. and salt. Why is it brought to you by Wegmans Creamy Peanut Butter? It's not. I'm not actually sponsored. I'm not going to get demonetized, I hope. I'll get to that in a second. This is a this song, tell me if I'm wrong, Weezer fans, should actually have been on OK Human. This is a sweet song of domestic bliss. It's a song about how, now according to Rivers, he says this is AC/DC. This is his AC/DC song. I don't think so. I mean, they can do a better imitation of AC/DC than this. What I love is that this is a song about how the reason that his wife needs him and therefore he needs her. And the examples that he gives, one of the examples is the ability to open up a jar of peanut butter, like I will right now. My wife needs me to pick up the lid. But, you know, like this kind of like silly domestic image, and then talks about like recording the favorite shows, but then goes into the details of like listening to her problems and being there with her when she sleeps. And it's a very astute song about a happy marriage and about the sort of comforting routine, the comforting interchange, and like how you need your partner and how they need you, and through that you have some kind of stability and happiness. She's mine, all mine, and she likes it that way almost all of the time. That is a underrated lyric. That is a lyric of the century. She likes it that way almost all the time. Anytime you're in a good relationship, a good committed relationship, there is a part of you that is given over to somebody else, where somebody sort of owns you in a way. I sort of own my wife sort of owns me, right? Like we're committed to each other, right? And she likes it that way almost all the time. That's the rub. How big that almost is how healthy your marriage is going to be, I think. And what I love is that he takes it to its absolute extreme, where he talks about the fallacy of freedom, right? So, I mean, before I get to the fallacy of freedom, like, there's so much great stuff happening in this song. There's like a cowbell part, which again is like, is this a parody of a song that has cowbells? Or is this being played by Will Ferrell? Like, it just feels kind of like satire, but it's not. And it's right here with these crazy lyrics, with these great lyrics. We all need a reason to live. So don't ever fall for that freedom bit. Free as a bird, I flew down that road. Take it from me, it's a horror show. If you allow me to get preachy-er than I already am, we live in a society that tells us to constantly be individuals, to constantly be free. That has an impact on how we relate to other people, especially rock music, but all music encourages this kind of behavior, a kind of consumeristic belief in your own individuality and your need to be yourself and to be free. Freedom is just another word for buy stuff, okay? Don't rely on other people. Be for you. Consume the people you want to consume the music, consume the drugs, consume, and through that consuming, you define yourself as an individual apart from the rest of the world. Take it from Rivers Cuomo, it's a horror show. The dream of being free is the dream of non-contingency. It's actually part of what my thesis was about, okay? If we look at what a family is, right? It's actually the connections between them, right? The word obligation has the word legare in the middle, like actually connected, right? And those obligations, we use the word obligations in our modern society as a bad thing. Oh, I've got obligations. But it's the obligations that keep us connected. And here's a question for you. Where does true happiness come from? True happiness comes from the connections that we have to people that we care about and who care about us. Happiness does not come from sleeping with 1,000 women in a year. Happiness does not come from the adulation of strangers. Happiness comes from this connection, comes from somebody needing you to open up the jar of peanut butter, needing you to clean up after your video and not leave the jar lid there because Toby would just eat it like that. That's where actual happiness comes from. And in the middle of this album, which is very tongue-in-cheek, very goofy, very this and that. He managed to make the best song on OK Human, and he put it on Van Weezer. Awesome. I am so happy that I've discovered Weezer. I'm so happy I started this channel. If I didn't start this channel, I never would have actually discovered Weezer. So there you go. It's all Ben's fault. Blued me. And then the album ends with the song Precious Metal Girl. And again, you're funny. It's a joke. The whole song's a joke. It's one joke taken to its extreme. Rivers Cuomo must have had the idea, hey, metal, precious metal, like gold. Metal girls, like girls who like heavy metal music. Precious metal girl. Let's take this one idea and drive it so far into the ground, you could put a skyscraper on top of it and it wouldn't wobble, okay? He just really drives this idea into the ground. The sun is setting, but you're on sunset, talks about like explorers looking for the rare gold, talks about LA guns, talks about I don't need to go down to the mine because you're all mine. But it's really funny, it's filled with these nice sweet details, and it ends up being an actually nice love song. And oh, by the way, it's all acoustic. A weird flex at the end of an album, which is very flexy by its nature. Like, oh yeah, all this beautiful production that Susie Shin has been putting together and all these people doing all these things, at the heart of it is me with a guitar and a brain and a pen making this kind of music. By leaving this song unmolested, just a guitar and maybe one other overdub, he's telling you every other song on this album could be like this. This song could be like every other song on the album. It doesn't matter if we pass it through the filter of Van Halen or Kiss or the Cars. The heart of it, it's me, Rivers Cuomo, being a genius, flexing on you, and making great music. So there you go. That's great. It's just great. I did lose a Patreon, which is cool. Thank you for supporting me for the time that you did. So if you'd like to be the new 12th patron, that would be awesome. If you don't know, I do every dollar that I get from my patrons, I use to buy music. I actually bought this album at the Record Archive with money that they gave me, that these people gave me. Okay? So like, oops. So, you know, if you want to join, I make lots of, videos that I just do there. Like little videos that I think are cool, but aren't for a bigger audience. So you can join this crew. You can be the 12th, if you'd like. See, look, I even put a little Weezer W up on there. All right, thank you so much. A funny thing happens where right after I finish my video, I forget everything. I just completely tune out. And I leave a whole mess in the living room. And it's really obnoxious because my wife does most of the picking up around the house. So right now, I am going to screw the lid on right here. Not a horror show. All right, there's the camera.